right. So, Kedar, for those who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about Qualcomm's AI PCs?
Awesome.
Qualcomm-powered AI PCs, I should say.
Sure.
Yes.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you for having me here. For those that don't know, with a little bit about Qualcomm, we're obviously many of you know Qualcomm as a phone and technology company. That's been our legacy. That's been our heritage. We believe that we want to bring all of the goodness that you saw in phones and all of the innovation that we drove in phones. We wanted to bring that exact same experience in PCs. And so about 4 months back, we announced something called the Snapdragon X Elite. And we coined the term performance PC reborn, because we really believe it was taking performance and intelligent computing to a next level. The reason why we did that is because we really felt that PCs haven't seen innovation in many years. If you think about what we've been able to do in phones, we've been able to drive disruption with even a simple thing like GPS, for example, right? How often are we all using GPS in our phones, and you call an Uber or Lyft? And when was the last time, if you remember many years ago, we'd be in downtown area and you'd lose your GPS signal. But now when you have an Uber driver calling you and saying, hey, I'm in downtown San Francisco, but I've lost my GPS signal, I don't know how to get you. The reason is, we had multiple satellites, we drove innovation, we triangulated multiple GPSs, we got the fix in terms of what we wanted. So just think of those very similar functions as what we want to drive in a PC. Whether that is getting an incredible camera experience, just exactly similar to how we drove an incredible camera in phones, with almost replacing DSLR cameras out there. Now, when you transform that into a PC, you almost feel like the attributes are very similar, right? You want an incredible battery life. You want very good performance. You want very good camera, more so in the era where we're all on working virtual and we're all on Teams calls and Zoom calls every day. We want a very good experience. And then, obviously, we want Gen AI, and we want to be able to run stuff on device. We started our journey with on-device, just AI in general, more than, I think, back in 2017. And we've had on-device AI in many of our devices for more than 8-10 years now. And even our PC products have supported on-device AI. So our journey with Microsoft started in redefining this moment. And what we've introduced now is the Snapdragon X Elite PCs. We launched them in June. And almost every top PC OEM or PC manufacturer, whether it's Dell, HP, Lenovo, all the big guys, they've all launched great brands with XPS and all the typical brands with X Elite, both in the consumer and the commercial space. So here we are trying to redefine the computing space and truly looking at a PC reborn.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And can you tell us a little bit about what kinds of software capabilities this new hardware can unlock?
Yeah. It's just the beginning in terms of where we are. And you've heard so many of these great panelists talk about what they want to hear. And what you heard are so many different verticals. And our job as Qualcomm is that we want to make sure that we're making this as ubiquitous as possible for everybody to be able to use Gen AI. And more importantly, we want it to be on device. We believe that the future of all of this stuff is hybrid, right? So when you think about what software you need and what you need, today, Gen AI is, it's still primitive, I'd say, in terms of what you were able to see. A lot of people are searching, a lot of people are building models. For example, on Snapdragon X Elite, we're supporting 13 billion parameter models today. So all of what you hear on Gen AI from these different panelists is still, it's significant, right? 13 billion is not a small number. But there's a lot of innovation happening on optimizing models, a lot of innovation happening on generative AI. So our job as Qualcomm is we're trying to innovate in terms of working with all these rapidly evolving AI models and working with enterprises to be able to adopt those and deploy it on device or in a hybrid environment, right? So I don't think we're necessarily saying that everything's going to move on device. We do believe that the future is going to be hybrid. There's going to be some form of models that will run on device. There'll be some hybrid where, if you can't fit what you're doing, some tasks that you can't fit on device, it's going to go to the cloud. And obviously for large language, some very large models, I don't know, like 500, 700 billion parameter models, they're going to stay in the cloud. But so there's a bunch of things that we're doing. We're also working with a lot of ISV partners. Almost a lot of the folks that were panelists today, we're working with almost all of them to drive innovation in how we're driving on-device AI through software.
Makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about how the partnership with Microsoft went on this new device? And specifically, I'm also interested in this recall feature that is coming up, right? It has the ability to actually take screenshots of your work and use AI to kind of process what you're seeing on your screen, what you're working on. Obviously, big privacy concerns there too, and Microsoft wants to get it right with the rollout. But can you talk us through how the partnership is going and how new features like this that we couldn't even think of before because you wouldn't have the compute capacity to do such a thing or the AI to process it, what kind of value that can potentially give to the business customer?
Yeah. Good question. Look, our partnership with Microsoft has been deep, right? Microsoft launched all of the Copilot Plus experiences on May 20th. And they were exclusively launched on Qualcomm with the Snapdragon X Elite platform. We've been working with Microsoft for many years now. So like I said, they saw the value in what we're doing in terms of innovation. To build something that what a consumer really wants, I think of it as three big elements. One is amazing software. Obviously, you have the OS. And third is great hardware. Obviously, what Microsoft saw is the fact that we have the hardware. We were leading technology and innovation in terms of driving, say, for example, a 45 TOPS. I know it's not a good way to necessarily look at AI performance, but I wish there's a better benchmark. But for what it's worth, we have a platform that supports 45 TOPS. At Qualcomm, we have a heterogeneous architecture. So what that means is you have fixed function blocks for a lot of capabilities that we're doing. So for example, we have a very powerful CPU called the Qualcomm Orion CPU. We have a very powerful graphics engine, and we have on-device AI with the NPU. And we led the way with enabling this 45 TOPS NPU. In addition to that, we have a dedicated camera ISP, like a camera processor, which is where you can offload all of the camera stuff on there. Within our audio engine, we have a small little neural processor. The reason why all of this is important is we had the vision and the R&D that we did many years ago to actually predict the fact that we're going to have more people on video. You're going to be able to offload your video content on a little video core. You're going to be able to offload all your audio on a video call, on a little audio core within the hardware engine. So when you think about that, what Microsoft saw is the value in terms of the hardware blocks we provide. What Microsoft did is, obviously, they re-vectored the entire operating system. So when you look at what Microsoft launched with Copilot Plus, the entire operating system is reimagined and redeveloped, right? So you can, for example, go to a task manager and look at the utilization on an NPU. What you saw before was just the CPU and GPU. Now what you see is NPU as well. So you can actually see how tasks are being offloaded from your CPU and GPU to drive more concurrency, letting your CPU do more. Then you go back. I went from hardware to the OS, and then when you think about software, they have more than 40+ models that they've optimized on device. And so a lot of the work that we did with Microsoft in terms of optimizing these models was, one, making sure it takes advantage and celebrates the silicon. Second, what Microsoft did in working, both of us did together, is these models had to be quantized. And when you quantize the model, we have to make sure that we preserve the accuracy of the model. We want to make sure that the data and the output that we're getting from all of this is still very relevant and accurate. So the work that happened, they announced, for example, the Phi Silica model. A lot of these models, even today, only run on the Snapdragon platforms right now with X Elite, and we also have a brand below that called the X Plus. So that's just where these models are able to run. So the partnership with Microsoft is deep because the collaboration didn't just happen overnight. We invested in our silicon many years ago. As you know, it takes time. They invested in the operating system and the redefinition of change in where the industry is going. And together, we're partnering with all of these ISVs and third-party vendors to be able to take advantage of all of these models. So it's been a great collaboration.
Makes sense. And as enterprise AI gets more capable, right? It can take more inputs. It can offload that video conference for you. It can transcribe the call. How do you think enterprises should be earning the trust of their customers to actually move forward and take in this information? And does a hardware component help with that, because you're saying, hey, this is on your device, we're not sending it out to anyone else, right?
That's the most important thing, right? So look, there's everybody talked about privacy and security and immediacy. So obviously, when you think about all of these aspects, having all of your data stored locally and on device is super important. We talked about, for example, you're talking about personal data. And so first, there's going to be an emotional intelligence aspect, like in terms of how you connect with your PC. The PC is going to be able to much better understand what you're doing. It's going to learn from what you do. Simple things today, if you use Copilot, you start using Copilot to draft emails or even edit your emails. There is an aspect where it starts to understand exactly the tone that you want to use, the kind of message you want to deliver. And so for all of those, it's going to start having an emotional intelligence, emotional connection with the user. With all of this, at least as it relates to your question on enterprise, I'll give you an example with Qualcomm. At Qualcomm, our IT has embraced all of this internally. Any new employee only gets a Copilot plus PC, obviously with all on-device AI. We have more than 20,000 employees right now using Copilot. We have about 5,000 engineers that use CodeGen to help, obviously, write code. What we did is we took a Llama model and integrated that with CodeGen. And just within a matter of months, we've been able to get the engineers, with the aid with CodeGen, it's written 1 million lines of code, right? So you can look at how we're maximizing productivity, because our goal is simple. We want to automate repetitive tasks. We want to be able to run stuff on device, run stuff locally. As we did all of this stuff, privacy was super important. Keeping our data intact was super important. I'll give you another example. We had, for any meeting, as you have group meetings and as program managers take notes and stuff, we deployed Copilot in there. Our average data shows that for any person that was taking notes, they're saving about 2 hours per day, just giving them more free time to be more productive in meetings. So, and all of this obviously stays on device. You can go access everything within your own framework of choice, and it never leaves your device. So that's obviously a benefit of how you see stuff being on device.
Makes sense. Excuse me. One other part of hardware that we often don't talk about as much with AI, but is, of course, very important, is all the infrastructure that goes into producing the chips, producing these, ultimately, if it ends up in your AI PC. Can you talk a little bit about this unprecedented demand that we're seeing for the chips infrastructure to power AI? And, I've reported on people like Sam Altman who are proposing 5 gigawatts data centers. We've written about broader global partnerships to support international chip production. How big of a problem do you think this is? Do we have the infrastructure to continue supporting generative AI development? And if not, how do we get there?
Yeah. Obviously, I think we all know it's the velocity at which the generative AI stuff is moving is rapid. There's no doubt about it. Everybody is trying to embrace this as quickly as possible. First, I think where we are today is just the beginning, because we still haven't gone into multimodals and stuff, right? And I'll use PC as an example because it helps make the point very clear. We're still, in terms of what we're doing with generative AI, is still more search-like. Obviously, with Microsoft Copilot Plus, you can do co-creator, you can create an image, you can try to visualize what you want to be able to make the point you're trying to make. But where it's going to get even more interesting is when you start looking at multi-modalities, like a text into an image into PowerPoint, creating music. And, Panos here, I was listening to him earlier, he's talking about how the music industry is going to generate stuff. We've partnered, for example, with one of the ISVs called DJ Pro that actually has taken, run stuff on the NPU and segregated music from vocal cords, right? So you can see how people are adopting it. So yes, the answer is it's moving rapidly. And at the same time, there are all of these data center folks that are trying to build capacity as rapidly as possible. And, they couldn't move any faster. This is why we believe that the more you have on-device AI, the more you're able to offload stuff from the cloud on device. It helps this ecosystem. And that's why I keep saying there's always going to be a hybrid approach. So a couple of things will happen. So today, again, to use the example, I talked about 13 billion parameters running on a 45 TOPS NPU today. A couple of things will happen out in time. One, I think you'll see more on-device AI. Second, the models that you have today will start to get quantized and people will start to shrink the model. So what is a 13 billion parameter model today on a 45 TOPS NPU? Maybe it'll become 20 billion parameters tomorrow. What that just means is now you're offloading stuff from what's in the data center, which is obviously very expensive. You start moving it on device, right? So even things like for all of us that are in the enterprise environment and stuff, a simple search of what an employee does is an expensive search, right? Because that just means you're building more capacity somewhere else, you're building more data centers, and at the end of the day, it's circular. It's going to come back to somewhere somebody's going to pay for it. So the more we move to on-device AI, the more we move to a hybrid approach and then offload stuff to do more intensive tasks on the cloud, I think the better it is.
Makes sense. Are there specific areas, industries, use cases that really you're most excited about when you think about on-device computing and the potential there in the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years?
Shirin, I should say, is there an industry that I'm not excited about that's going to use it? Because, we're in trials with so many enterprises today with deploying Snapdragon X Elite PCs. We're talking to folks in manufacturing. And when you think about manufacturing or operations as an example, what's important to an enterprise there is time to fix. You've got a production line, and you actually have a problem. Your production line's on hold. It just means you're adding cost. So what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to quickly debug that. You want to quickly be able to understand what the root cause is and get your production lines back on. And it's only going to help with generative AI. Another example that we're working very closely with is customer service. There's a partner we're engaged with right now, helping them optimize their models on our on-device NPU. Think of it as it's a customer service model. So if you're a consumer that calls up this particular company, they are real-time processing stuff. So it's like if Kedar calls say a cable company and says, hey, my buddy here, Shirin, actually gets a much lower bill I found out on her internet, and I'm paying a lot more. That company actually does on-device AI, finds out all of the real-time information and says, okay, Shirin's been paying X dollars a month, Kedar's been paying Y dollars a month, and it calculates that and said, okay, Kedar's a loyal customer for the last 2 years. It automatically gives you recommendations on, hey, here's a few things. He's a loyal customer. Why don't you give him a 20% discount? It's going to automate stuff in terms of economics. So you think about manufacturing, you think about operations, you think about music industry, you think about architecture and how quickly you can accelerate things. There really isn't an industry that's going to take advantage. And I think that's exactly what we're excited about with moving stuff on device and helping all of these guys do more modeling work on our PCs.
Great. Well, I think that is a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much for talking to me. Yeah.
Thank you.